co-main, man, we got Cutelaba, the Hulk, who is the -140 favorite, believe it or not, in a light heavyweight clash between, against the +110 underdog and Devin, the Brown Bear Clark. I'm a little surprised on the odds on this one, to be honest with you, AJ. Cutelaba is 1-3-1 in his last fight, and that extra one on the end is not a no contest, but it is a draw against Dustin Jacoby, which I will say is very impressive. Dustin Jacoby has been on a streak, man. He's killing it ever since he came back from Glory Kickboxing. He has been beating the brakes off of people, looking like a world beater. But Cutelaba, we're talking about hot seat. There's a lot of fighters that we're talking about that are on this hot seat, AJ, and he is definitely on it. The 27-year-old Southpaw is going to need a big performance against Devin Clark. But Devin Clark did make note. He says, Cutelaba, he's normally the guy who bullies people. Well, I get to be the bully this time around, man. And I think I can see that happening. So my question to you, AJ, we saw Cutelaba, who grew up training Sambo from, he trained Greco-Roman as an adolescent. He is a world champion, or a national champion, in Sambo and Judo. So he's got real grappling chops. We saw a very wrestling intensive approach from him. We also saw a gas tank issue from him because of the wrestling heavy approach. Do you think we see the same thing, or do you think he's going to try to go more, hands heavy approach on this one? How do you kind of see this one shaking out?
It's hard because I definitely think if he's smart, he goes wrestling heavy on this one. But going wrestling heavy against Brown Bear Clark is a tall task to ask. And you got to love Cutelaba, man, because win, lose, or draw, homeboy is a madman. And that's what we love to see, man. He throws heat from the jump, but it's those big looping shots like we were talking about with the last fighter. If Cutelaba is smart, he's going to shoot for the takedown and try to work a ground and pound finish. But like I said, man, against Brown Bear Clark, that's a tall task to ask because homeboy is a great wrestler and carries absolute power in the hands. And I expect Devin Clark to fight the same way he did against Menefield, man. Tire him out, work the takedown, beat him up. It's pretty stacked after that. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you, man. I do think that's the game plan, and I do think that Devin Clark is going to have the better gas tank in this one. He showed it against Menefield, and Menefield is one of the strongest light heavyweights that we got on the roster, man. So for him to have that type of performance was very, very impressive. But I will say Devin Clark, his one weak point to me, man, and I've been a big fan of this dude for a long time. He's also had a very uneven career in the UFC, some wins, some losses, right? It happens. In the UFC, he's 6-5, man. So when you're just barely above 500, I mean, that's 11 fights right there. But I will say the striking seems to be a weak point to me, AJ. He just looks uncomfortable in the stand-up because the wrestling is clearly what he's trying to do, right? He opens up in this very squatted down, stance, and then he just shoots blast doubles all day long. If he doesn't get it once, he's going to shoot again and again and again until he gets it, until he tires you out, until he does stuff like that, man. So I want to ask you about last fives real quick, AJ. Tell me what's more impressive to you, or who do you give an edge to in this one, man? I already kind of know the answer, but I do think it's interesting. So last fight for Cutelaba, Dustin Jacoby, Magomed Ankalaev, who is my dark horse for the 205 champion. As soon as give the man a fight, please, so he can become the champion already. So Magomed Ankalaev twice, Khalil Roundtree, and Glover Teixeira, right? So he's 1-3-1, but against a hit list of killers. Versus Devin Clark, he just lost to Anthony Smith, defeated Alonzo Menefield, defeated Daquan Townsend, lost to Ryan Spann, and Stosic. I don't remember the man's first name, but that's the last one on the list, man. Clearly, we have the edge for Cutelaba, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the only one that doesn't really stand out is Darko Stosic. Daquan Townsend's also kind of, sort of, yeah, exactly, on that fence of the list. But I definitely give the experience in the last five to Cutelaba.
I mean, come on, man. You have to fight Magomed Ankalaev twice? Come on.
I mean, that was his own doing on that one. I think he deserved that.
And he got knocked out twice, literally, in the first round. So it's like, oh man, that's a rough one. But he did have the one, where he beat the brakes off of Khalil Roundtree, right? That was a big win. And then, losing to Glover Teixeira, that's the unstoppable Glover. You know what I'm saying? But okay, man. Once again, we have another situation where we have big looping shots for Cutelaba, which has spelled a lot of trouble for him as of late, right? Because everything is big, huge animated motions, and you can knock your head off, man, with that. But Devin Clark, I don't think he'll put himself in those positions because he'll be too busy trying to do the wrestling stuff, man. My question here is, I have a bold prediction that I don't want to come to fruition, but are you familiar with the last Ryan Spann loss that we'll talk about right here in the main card in a second, was to Johnny Walker, right? Johnny Walker. Do you remember how that fight played out?
Elbows and hammer fists is what I got down. I actually didn't watch that one.
So I'll just tell you, it was very, very quick fight. Ryan Spann doing their thing. Johnny Walker, they go. Johnny Walker has his back against the cage. Ryan Spann shoots in for a takedown, and it's the classic elbows to the side of the head, sleep
Mhm.
immediately, done, just like
I
that.
do remember that fight. Yep.
I hate to see that happen, but when you have wrestling heavy fighters, sometimes you get caught in that takedown process, and in MMA, you just can't leave yourself there, or else you're super vulnerable, right? Do you see that happening? Because I kind of have a feeling both of these dudes could knock each other out just like that. Just a couple elbows right there to the side of the head, they're sleep, done, call it a night. What do you think?
Yeah, I could see that happening. I mean, the crazier things have happened in the cage,
Of
so I could
course.
definitely see either Jan Cutelaba or Devin Clark getting a couple good elbows in and knocking each other out. Um, my question to you, Derek, is who do you think has the better stand up for this one? Because like more technical, well rounded, who's going to take the advantage on the stand up? Because I feel like Devin Clark in practice has that. You know, he
Yeah.
looks good, but then when the punches start flowing, it's a little bit basic and it's a little bit timid, if you will. Whereas the opposite for Cutelaba, homeboy's
Yeah.
not timid at all. What do you think?
Well, I would have to say that I think Ion Cutelaba in fight, in the cage, has the better striking, more poised, composed striking. Devin Clark just seems a little panicked to me, you know what I mean? He throws the big winging overhooks, you know what I'm saying? The one difference is Devin Clark does have a nice right cross, and I do respect that. Jan Cutelaba, I don't think he got the crosses. It's all just hooks and bombs, you know what I'm saying? But I do think it doesn't matter how good you are in practice. It depends on what you're doing come fight night, you know what I'm saying? I think Jan Cutelaba, not only does he have a little more experience, 21 career fights as opposed to 17 for Devin Clark, but listen, man, the dude's also a little more spry, a little younger, 27 years old versus 31 years old for Devin Clark, and he's fought dudes who got real striking chops, right? Not to say that the dudes Devin Clark has fought doesn't have real striking chops, but I mean, come on, man. Roundtree, Teixeira, Jacoby, Ankalev, you're literally fighting kickboxers, boxers, like dudes who got real hands, you know? So I'm going to give the edge to Jan Cutelaba, and I think that his best bet is having this fight stay on the feet. Devin Clark needs to get this fight to the ground if he wants to win. Cutelaba needs to keep it on the feet. But then again, Cutelaba is probably going to be in fire panic mode because another loss right here, man, might signal the end of your UFC days. For Devin Clark, I think he has a little more wiggle room. Give me your pick on this one and why, AJ.
Yeah, Derek, I'm going Devin Clark by decision on this one. It's kind of a bold pick that neither of these dudes are going to fall or finish each other, but I don't see it really going out that way, man. I think Cutelaba is a little too one dimensional for Devin Clark. I think Clark's going to put it to him, going to get the ground game going, fight the same kind of fight that he did against Menefield. But to that point, you got to be careful with Cutelaba because he can put you out real quick in the especially in the early part of the fights. Round one, super dangerous. So he gets caught. And even in the Menefield fight, Devin Clark got caught, and he was on wobbly legs round one. So if that happens again, Jan Cutelaba, he might be able to put him away. But like I said, I'm going Devin Clark by decision, man. Who you got and why?
I'm going Devin Clark by decision as well. And I was just about to say, I was like, man, if he could survive Alonzo Menefield, there's almost no one as dangerous in that first round in the 205 division than Alonzo Menefield. So if he could survive that, I have confidence he'll be able to survive against Cutelaba. This man is training out of Jackson Winks MMA out of the great state of New Mexico. And listen, man, his notable wins, there we go, show some love, man. His notable wins is slow Mike Rodriguez, Alonzo Menefield, Jake Collier, which I guess isn't that impressive, middleweight turned heavyweight, and Daquan Townsend, man. For Jan Cutelaba, really the biggest win of his career. He's fought a bunch of big names, but the biggest wins of his career have been against Khalil Roundtree and Ghazi Murad Antigulov, right? That's really it for him. So he fought all the names, but you're not really winning, so it doesn't really count. So Devin Clark by UD for me. The last thing I will say is I think Jan Cutelaba, what we love about him is the pre-fight antics, right? The screaming in your face, painting yourself green like the Incredible Hulk. But I think he puts a little too much emotion in the cage, personally. You got to fight stoically, logically, all that.